This is from Fight for the Future, an organization committed to protecting net neutrality and keeping the internet out of the hands of the oligarchs. No to the smart wall. Day of action against expanded border surveillance. So what's going on with this? Tomorrow, which actually today, Wednesday, February 13th, civil liberty groups will hold a day of action to oppose additional funding for invasive surveillance technology at the U.S. border, reported to be part of the agreement in principle reached by congressional negotiators to avoid another government shutdown. Groups including Fight for the Future and Defending Rights and Dissent will deliver thousands of signatures to Speaker Pelosi's office at noon tomorrow Eastern, on Capitol Hill, and will mobilize their members for online actions to drive phone calls to tweets at key members of Congress. Last week, 28 human rights and civil liberty groups, including Fight to the Future, the ACLU, EFF, Races, Magente, signed an open letter calling on members of Congress not to fund surveillance technology at the borders. Research shows that expanding these massive spying programs will inevitably lead to more unnecessary suffering and death at the U.S. border, and they pose a grave threat to millions of people's privacy and civil liberties across the nation. All right. So, and let me focus on the call to actions there. These are the Congress people you should call. And remember, if you're going to contact your Congress people, calling is still the most effective way to do it. If you call, they have to take note of it. It has to be noted. A voicemail has to be noted. A message with a receptionist has to be noted. If you email, there's a better chance it can get lost. If you send a letter, good luck. Calling is still the most effective way to cloud that voice box. So there you go. Congresswoman Nita Lowey, Congresswoman Lucille Roybal Allard, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Congressman Pete Aguilar, Congressman Henry Cueller, Congressman David Price. So what is this all about? Well, it turns out that, when you talk about issues at the border, you're not just talking about the troop presence there, which, we got some good news here in California. We're going to decrease the number of troops at the border, have them focus on other things. But you're also talking about technology and surveillance and different techniques that they can use that many digital rights activists and digital rights groups and individuals, myself being one of them, says is an overreach. So here in particular is what Fight to the Future is referring to. 28 tech and human rights organizations call on Congress not to fund invasive surveillance technology at the U.S. border. Okay, so here's what they're referring to specifically. Number one, risk-based targeting. The proposal calls for an expansion of risk-based targeting of passengers and cargo entering the United States. We are concerned that this includes the expansion of programs proven to be ineffective and to exacerbate racial profiling that use mathematical analysis to make targeting determinations. All too often, these systems replicate the biases of their programmers. Number two is just mass surveillance as a whole. So the proposal calls for an expansion of CBP's air and marine operations along the border. We're concerned that this means an increase in the deployment of aircraft with wide area surveillance capabilities. Such aircraft, including unmanned drones, often include the power to capture the faces and license plates of vast numbers of people who live and work near the border. So you're near the border, they're looking at your face, they're scanning your plates. They're doing all that, and where is it going on? It's not even going on the ground, it's going on up above. It's going on in the clouds, and they got your face. This is something out of a Mission Impossible movie, but your government's doing it to you. They're doing it to you. So that's number two. Number three, biometrics. The proposal calls for new cutting-edge technology at the border. If that includes new face surveillance like that deployed at international airline departures, it should not. Senator Jeff Merkley and the Congressional Black Caucus have expressed serious concern that facial recognition technology would place disproportionate burdens on communities of color and could stifle Americans' willingness to exercise their First Amendment rights in public. In addition, use of biometrics, including iris scans and voice recognitions, also raise significant privacy concerns. We thus oppose new spending to enhance the use of biometrics by DHS. So here's what the proposal calls for: new cutting-edge technology. What could new cutting-edge technology mean? Anything. That can mean anything. I mean, that could mean facial recognition. That could mean planes from up above scanning your license plate, scanning your face. That could mean enhanced interrogation techniques with whatever tools are available. Advanced technology, that could mean anything. New cutting-edge technology. That could mean anything. We're going to use new cutting-edge technology. That could mean an advanced weapon. That could mean a faster gun. You can tell I don't use guns based on the way I talk about them. It could be a faster one. That's what I think a gun store's like. You walk in and they say, "Hi, sir, would you like a fast gun or a slow gun?" And I say, "I would like the fastest one possible." But you see what I mean. All right, number 4, license plate readers. We are also concerned that new cutting-edge technology will include automatic license plate readers. These camera systems build a detailed database of where people are located over time. Border Patrol has deployed ALPR systems not just at the border, but at interior checkpoints as far as 100 miles from the border, a zone within which 2/3 of Americans live. And we did a story a while back about one of the things they're doing is they would they would inspect just at random and at will Greyhound buses that were far away from the border. They were 100 miles away from the border. But Border Patrol would just randomly inspect the Greyhound buses, looking for any undocumented people. So they would just get on a bus. You could just be on a bus, minding your own business, going wherever. They just go on there. They inspect you. So these are all the civil liberties that people are putting at stake in the name of a non-existent problem. We have a net zero immigration. It's a non-existent problem. All right, so here's the 5th thing. Let me get back to the article here. Biometric and DNA data. We oppose biometric screening at the border and the collection of immigrants' DNA, and fear this may be another form of new cutting-edge technology under consideration. We are concerned about the threat that any collective biometric data will be stolen or misused, as well as the potential for such programs to be expanded far beyond their original scope. This list is not exhaustive, and it may expand as the public learns more about the kinds of surveillance technologies that Congress may fund at the border. Indeed, we also express additional concern with proposals that involve persistent and expansive video and imagery surveillance, sensors, and other technologies that are likely to collect large amounts of personal and individual information from travelers and border residents. Finally, we call on Congress to conduct robust oversight of government surveillance technologies already deployed at the border. While that oversight is ongoing, we should not expand these technologies with new funding. We urge Congress to ensure that even deployments of technology with existing funding be made contingent upon independent certification that the technology has efficacy and does not adversely impact privacy and civil liberties. We know that the border is often a testing ground for surveillance technology that is later deployed throughout the United States. Ubiquitous surveillance technology poses a serious threat to human rights and constitutional liberties. We call on Congress not to expand these invasive programs with new funding. And we know what happens in the past. We know what has happened in the past when you have these pieces of legislation that have these vague clauses saying what they can do. It is often abused to the utmost degree. And it's written that way on purpose. It's written vaguely on purpose so that what someone can get away with, what the powers that be can get away with, is virtually limitless. this is another situation of that going on. And it's got bipartisan support, because here's the principal deal that's being referenced here as a whole. Negotiators reached deal in principle to avert shutdown. Congressional negotiators announced an agreement in principle, this was Monday night, on a broad spending bill they hope will satisfy President Donald Trump's demand for additional border barriers and avert another government shutdown at the end of the week. So the tentative deal includes $1.375 billion for physical barriers, a type of fencing that resembles steel slates that Trump has specifically called for, according to a congressional aide briefed on the talks. It includes a total of 55 miles, which is just 9 miles shy of Trump's last budget request. In exchange, Democrats agreed to drop their demand to restrict the number of people who can be detained by ICE. So they're getting money for the border wall. ICE's powers are expanded. And there's all these surveillance issues that Fight for the Future brings up. Who compromised here? This is bipartisanship at work. This is when Democrats and Republicans can work together when it comes to demonizing immigrants and taking more civil liberties away from people and spying on you. This is when we have bipartisan support. This is where you can see, and even this article itself celebrates what a quick turnaround time. They were able to negotiate so quickly. They were able to negotiate on what evil shit they wanted to include this time. Bipartisanship.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make